You've heard of Cleopatra VII, the seductress with Caesar and Antony. But what if I told you another Cleopatra faced something even darker? One who was raped by her own brother so he could crown himself king. This is the forgotten horror story of Cleopatra II of Egypt, a queen betrayed, violated, and erased from memory until now. Stay with us as we uncover one of history's most disturbing royal betrayals. Before we dive into this ancient nightmare, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Historian Bunker, and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps bring these buried stories to light. Now, let's begin. In the opulent palaces of ancient Egypt, power wasn't inherited, it was seized. Bloodlines were sacred, but the way to preserve them was often through the unthinkable, royal incest. Cleopatra wasn't a name whispered in Rome or immortalized by Shakespeare. Her tale is too ugly for romance. Hers is a legacy forged in betrayal, blood, and unrelenting pain. She was born into the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek family ruling over an Egyptian empire. Their motto: keep power in the family at any cost. Marry your sibling, birth your successor, repeat. Her father, Ptolemy V, died young. His wife, Cleopatra I, ruled as regent, placing their children Cleopatra II and her brothers in a volatile line of succession. Behind the golden walls, rivalries festered. Egypt was crumbling from within. Corruption rotted the court, while the people starved under crushing taxes. Cleopatra II, still a child, watched nobles poison each other over scraps of influence. When she came of age, she was married off to her own brother, Ptolemy VI, not out of love, not even out of duty, but because the dynasty demanded it. Blood must stay pure, and she obeyed. Like every Ptolemaic queen before her, Cleopatra II did what was expected. She ruled at her brother's side. She gave him heirs. She smiled while her soul withered, but nothing in this family was ever simple. Because there was another brother, one who watched from the shadows, seething with envy. Ptolemy VIII, nicknamed Physcon, fatty, for his grotesque appearance. Ptolemy VIII wasn't just bloated in size, he was bloated with ambition. He saw Cleopatra II as both prize and pawn, and he would stop at nothing to possess both her and her throne. A twisted triangle formed between Cleopatra II, her husband Ptolemy VI, and his brother. What began as an easy co-rule would soon devolve into incestuous horror, assassination, and war. In 170 BCE, while Egypt faced invasion from the Seleucid Empire, the three siblings agreed to share power. A fragile truce, enforced by mutual distrust. They all knew betrayal was inevitable. While Ptolemy VI battled on the front lines, Ptolemy VIII whispered in court. He charmed ministers, bribed soldiers, and watched Cleopatra II closely, far too closely. He didn't want to merely rule with her, he wanted her. Wanted to dominate her in the most violating way possible, to show he was more powerful than his brother. When Ptolemy VI died, some say poisoned by his brother, Ptolemy VIII made his move. The corpse was barely cold when he proclaimed himself king. But that wasn't enough. To legitimize his throne, he did the unthinkable. He forced Cleopatra to his own sister to marry him. And worse, he raped her, a brutal union dressed in royal ceremony. He told the people, it was tradition, that he was preserving divine blood. But behind palace doors, Cleopatra II lived in terror, her body a trophy, her soul held hostage. Yet Cleopatra wasn't silent, and she wasn't broken. Beneath the silks and gold, she plotted. She had ruled once, she would rule again. And this time, she would bring fire. By now, the court was a nightmare, ministers fled, servants whispered. The people feared a mad tyrant on the throne. But they underestimated Cleopatra too. They thought her powerless. They were wrong. Cleopatra played the perfect role, the obedient queen, the silent sister wife. But behind that royal mask, she was building an army. Not of swords, but of secrets. She knew how the court worked. She knew who feared her, who hated Ptolemy VIII, and most importantly, who could be bought. Whispers spread like wildfire through the palace corridors. The people had suffered under Ptolemy VIII's grotesque rule. Taxes crushed them. His appetite, both political and sexual, was insatiable. Cleopatra became their silent symbol of suffering. She did not beg. She did not plead. She waited. Until one day, the entire kingdom woke up to discover the queen had vanished. She had fled Alexandria. She had taken her daughter, her loyalists, and every ounce of royal legitimacy with her. In the south, she declared herself the true ruler of Egypt. The nation split in two. Cleopatra ruled Upper Egypt. Ptolemy VIII clung to the north. Brother and sister king and queen, husband and wife, now bitter enemies, locked in a civil war. And this was no ordinary war. It was brutal, personal, and soaked in the bile of betrayal. Spies turned, fortresses fell, the Nile ran red. Cleopatra didn't fight with brute force. She wielded propaganda like a dagger. She spread the truth about what her brother had done to her. She turned royal incest into public outrage. Pamphlets circulated accusing Ptolemy VIII of raping his sister, murdering her sons, and consorting with witches. Statues of him were defaced, cursed, dragged through the streets. For once, the incestuous machine of the Ptolemaic dynasty faced something worse than foreign invasion: internal collapse. Cleopatra II was winning hearts and cities. Then Ptolemy VIII did the unthinkable. To prove no one could defy him, he took one of Cleopatra's sons, his own stepson, and butchered him, slowly. He tore the boy limb from limb, had his body burned, and then most chillingly he sent the boy's ashes to Cleopatra II as a gift. She did not weep. She did not scream. She placed the urn in the royal court, declared it a symbol of her brother's monstrosity, and vowed never to stop fighting. Mothers wept with her. Soldiers deserted Phaescon's armies to join hers. Slaves whispered her name in prayer. Cleopatra II had become more than queen, she was vengeance made flesh. For nearly a decade, Egypt was ripped apart. Brother battled sister. Nephews killed uncles. The royal treasury was drained, and famine stalked the land. Still, neither side would yield. It was not merely a war over territory. It was a war over trauma, over a stolen body, over a crown painted in blood. Eventually, even the gods seemed to grow tired. The temples were desecrated. Priests turned away royal offerings. Omens warned of Egypt's doom. Finally, Ptolemy VIII did what no one expected. He fled. His tyranny had exhausted itself. Cleopatra II walked into Alexandria not as a queen, but as a goddess of retribution. The people bowed. The nobles wept. She had avenged her son, reclaimed her throne, and shattered the dynasty's incestuous curse, if only for a while. But peace would not last, because behind Cleopatra, more children waited in the shadows, more offspring of rape and betrayal. And they wanted power too. Victory was never simple in the house of Ptolemy. Cleopatra II may have retaken the throne, but she had not vanquished her enemy. Ptolemy VIII was down, but not dead. From his exile in Cyprus, Ptolemy VIII schemed. He courted allies in the shadows, promising gold and land to any willing to help him regain his stolen kingdom. And he had something far more dangerous than soldiers. He had royal children. Some were born of Cleopatra II, others from her daughter. Yes, you read that right. In one of the most twisted turns in ancient royal history, Ptolemy VIII married his own stepdaughter, who was also his niece, and raped her too. Cleopatra III, daughter of Cleopatra II, became the next unwilling pawn in her father-uncle's game. And she bore him children who would eventually threaten their own mother's life. Ptolemy VIII returned to Egypt not with swords, but with heirs. His monstrous union with Cleopatra III gave him the claim he needed. The people, weary of endless war, relented. In a stunning reversal, Cleopatra II was forced to reconcile with the man who had destroyed her. A joint rule was declared, her daughter, and the monster they both hated. Imagine it. sharing a throne with your rapist, looking into the eyes of your own child, and seeing the face of your abuser reflected in hers. The palace became a silent battlefield. Smiles masked hatred, feasts disguised poison. Cleopatra II aged quickly, not from time, but from trauma. She tried to keep control. She issued edicts, reorganized the treasury, strengthened ties with priests. But the poison was already in the bloodline. Her daughter, Cleopatra III, grew bolder. Whether out of ambition or survival, she began undermining her mother at court. Ministers whispered, loyalists vanished. The people watched, horrified, as a mother and daughter prepared for war not against foreign invaders, but against each other. Egypt, once again, trembled on the edge. Ptolemy VIII played them like a liar. He pitted daughter against mother, ensuring that no one but him held real power. And Cleopatra II could do nothing but endure. She had fought an empire. She had survived rape, war, and regicide. But she was losing the most painful battle of all against her own blood. Eventually, she faded into the background. The records grow quiet. Her name appears less and less in the inscriptions. It's as if she was being erased in real time. Cleopatra II, the queen who defied incest, rebellion, and grief, was now a ghost within her own palace, watching history forget her while others rewrote the tale. Yet even in silence, she remained dangerous. Her very existence was a reminder of everything the dynasty tried to suppress. Every scar on her body was a crack in the crown. She didn't die in flames. She didn't fall in battle. She simply disappeared. But legends whispered she still haunted the halls, her rage etched into the stones, and after her death, her story would be buried. Her name drowned by the fame of a different Cleopatra VII, sexier, cleaner, easier to sell. But history doesn't forget forever, and neither should we. The nightmare did not end with Cleopatra II's disappearance. In fact, her suffering became the blueprint for what came next. The Ptolemaic dynasty had tasted incest and it liked the flavor. Cleopatra III, her daughter and rival, now ruled beside the aging Ptolemy VIII, but she had learned from the best: manipulate, seduce, survive. She was her mother's daughter, after all. She gave her husband more children, more pawns, more snakes. And when Ptolemy VIII finally died likely poisoned, Cleopatra III didn't mourn. She seized power with terrifying speed. Her sons, born of incest and ambition, were raised in a palace where betrayal was bedtime lullaby. They watched as their mother ruled with an iron smile and poison pen. And what did Cleopatra III do to secure her rule? She turned on her own sons just like her mother had once turned on her. She banished one, had another imprisoned. She knew the dynasty could not afford sentiment. Love was a weakness. Family was a threat. This wasn't a monarchy. It was a meat grinder. Each generation fed into the next, chewed up by their own blood. A never-ending loop of seduction, incest, murder, repeat. The temples of Egypt no longer sang songs of glory. They whispered prayers for peace. But the gods had turned away from this cursed bloodline. Cleopatra III eventually met her own end, not from old age, but by decree of her own son. He stabbed her politically, stripped her of power, and watched her legacy wither. By now, the Ptolemaic name was synonymous with corruption. Rome watched with disgust and interest. Egypt was a goldmine wrapped in a soap opera. Generations after Cleopatra II, another queen would rise. Cleopatra VII. She would seduce Rome, raise armies, and meet her end with a snakebite. But her story, the one we all know, is only possible because of Cleopatra II, the one who first broke the mold, who dared to rebel, who dared to survive the tragedy. Her legacy was stolen. Cleopatra VII claimed her name, her title, and her myth. But she never acknowledged the blood spilled to make it possible. In school books, you'll find Cleopatra VII draped in pearls, lounging with Caesar. But you won't find Cleopatra clutching the ashes of her murdered son. You won't find the rape, the betrayal, The silent screams inside palace walls. Because history has a way of sanitizing women's pain, especially when it's inconvenient. The dynasty eventually fell. Rome invaded. The last Cleopatra died in dramatic fashion, her kingdom swallowed by empire. But the rot had started centuries earlier, with one brother, one queen. One throne stolen through violence and silence. The queen raped by her own brother to steal her throne. Cleopatra II's twisted tale. What does it mean to survive when history refuses to remember you? Cleopatra II endured horrors few could imagine. But today, her name echoes only faintly, overshadowed by prettier myths. She wasn't seductive. She wasn't glamorous. She didn't die with a snake in her hand and the Roman at her feet. No, she lived. And that was the problem. History loves martyrs, not survivors. Especially not women who outlast their abusers, who refuse to break, who dare to fight back without dying for the camera. Cleopatra II broke the dynasty's incest wheel. Even if only briefly, she led armies, defied her rapist, defied a system built to silence her. That should have made her immortal. But ancient historians, mostly men, chose to erase her. Or worse, vilify her. They called her jealous, vengeful, unstable. Not queen, not warrior, just inconvenient. Even modern Egyptologists often skip over her reign, focusing instead on Cleopatra VII, the one whose beauty could launch ships. Cleopatra II, just a glitch in the timeline. But this is the story that matters, because it reveals the cost of power when family becomes the battlefield. When bloodlines are prisons, and queens are treated like currency. Her legacy lives in the cracks of the empire she tried to hold together. In the unnamed ruins, in the silent scrolls, in the urn she never asked to receive. We remember her not because she was famous, but because she was forgotten. And that silence is where truth often hides. To every viewer watching this, remember her name. Cleopatra II, not the lover, not the legend, the survivor. The queen they tried to erase. History is not just written by the victors. It's edited by those uncomfortable with the truth. Let's change that. If this story moved you, like this video, subscribe to Historian Bunker, and comment below where you're watching from. Let's make sure Cleopatra II's tale is never buried again. Share this with someone who thinks history is boring, because sometimes the most horrifying stories are the ones we were never told. Thank you for watching.